happy eclipse in Aries. It's going to happen tonight at 9:30, but I'm grateful for everybody who's able to join live. We're going to be working through some material today, and I made, just for the sake of the flow of information and guiding us through the meditations and whatnot, I made a little set of slides. So I'm going to just start to share my screen. And then hopefully I can still see when people need to come in. I think that will be the case. So this is the general overview of how we're going to spend our time today. There's a lot going on cosmically and beneath the 3D surface. So it's interesting to me that the Aries new moon, and we'll talk about Aries and its relationship to alchemy and its relationship to things sort of coming online for us. We're going to start off with a meditation. I think I'll go ahead and just slowly get us started with the meditation. There are some more. So we're going to do a meditation to just get us in the mood for this eclipse. And I said we were going to do a sound healing because I wanted to play a specific crystal bowl for you, but when I Zoom won't let sound come through. So I'm not super sure if we're going to need the sound. So we're going to just start off by doing a little bit of a new moon meditation. So go ahead and find a space that you can sit comfortably and close your eyes. You can lie down if you need to, but this can easily be done. In fact, actually, no, let's do this sitting up because I know part of it is coming through for this meditation. So we're going to begin just by closing the eyes and finding your breath, breathing in through your nose, breathing out through your mouth. And just imagine you're taking in fresh air, exhaling anything that's ready to go. And send a cord or a set of roots down into Gaia. So just move yourself, your energetic self, down through however much man-made stuff, however high up you are off the ground. Find the earth beneath you in your understanding and send cord or some roots down so that you can really be anchored. So we're at this new moon. And this is a beautiful seeding time. We've been planting seeds for quite some time. And the question that comes to mind before we get into the seeding is for us to just sort of first notice the body. Notice how your body feels right now. Identify any sensations in the body. Maybe there's a tight spot. Maybe there's a holding. Maybe there's just thoughts going through your mind. Maybe it's just the sensation of your breathing or your heartbeat. And then also notice what's gotten under your skin lately. Notice if there's anything that, if it's been raining too much, if there's a neighbor that annoys you, if kids are too loud, if there's something sort of feeling slightly discordant. We're going to get into the process for how that could be a signal for something, but just notice if there's anything there. And simply by noticing whatever it is, you might say it out loud. You might just clench your fists or clench your face or notice how it makes you feel. And then go ahead and with your next exhale, let it go. And let's do 3 more breaths around this now. Breathing in. So here you are, you're taking in now. this moment, breathing out whatever that was. Let it leave your system. Let it leave your energetic field. 2 more breaths like that. Exhale. You can sigh. You can just let the breath go out of your mouth if that's easier. So the first part of this new moon meditation is to acknowledge that we live in a physical world that's going through a massive amount of change, and that we are physical beings that are connected to everything. So some of this stuff is not for us to understand the why, it's to be, and it's to understand how we can clear and keep going, get back on center. So this seeding time of this particular eclipse, and eclipses will get to they're really powerful portals. So we're not going to fix whatever that was. That was just an observation. That was an acknowledgement of it. And then there was an energetic release. So the invitation now is to let it go, to see if there's a willingness to let that be whatever it was in the past. And it does not need to be that today we have any connection of the dots about the why. That's a bigger picture that we can trust that we'll see at the proper time. But the faith is we're always at the right place at the right time, and it's always in the perfect unfolding. So then we're just going to release whatever we need to release and step in more fully into your now. So now begin to notice how you feel. Back into that just same initial check-in. How are you breathing? How are you today? Who are you today? What's the vibe today? Breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. So hopefully there's starting to be just our awareness of our breath. Our breath is such a powerful tool. Hopefully there's a deeper sense of peace. Hopefully there's a sense of coming home. And this is what's our birthright, this ability to reset, to reboot. And this is a massive reboot time. This is also a seeding time. This is also not needing to have the rational understanding of all the seeds that we've just been planting to get to this big seeding time, but to be with ourselves. And all right, so now I invite you to think about, to notice what intentions are coming to mind for you. Now that you're clear, now that you're centered, now that you're you on this day gathering in circle, what's your soul's intention? Maybe it's a very specific thing. Maybe it's a vibration. Maybe it is still about release. Maybe it's about something that you know you want to create. Maybe whatever it is. So just notice what your desires are. Notice what the inklings are. No judgment to what comes to mind. Maybe there's something new that you didn't really sense was out there. That's what this gathering is about. And there might be multiple intentions here. There might be multiple images or feelings. Pick one. Whatever one is energetically up for you. Pick it and then we're going to start to play here with this meditation. We're going to start to watch this unfold. So whatever this manifestation during this meditation is, whatever the thing is that's got the most charge, I'm inviting you now to play with it. How might it look? How might it feel if it's not something that is concrete? Or maybe if it is just a vibration, create an orb. Allow that orb to start to expand. Our consciousness is energy. That's how everything is created. So by spending this time during this powerful portal, whatever it is that we're seeding right now, this is how we're showing, telling, inviting the universe, universal consciousness to meet us. And it meets everybody all the time indiscriminately. This is just a practice that we can use today. So we're just going to spend a minute or two. For those of you that entered later, this is a time for us to release all the past seedings that we've planted in the last 5 or 7 lunar cycles, and really be with ourselves right now and know what that vibe is, notice what that intention is, and just spend some time by pointing our consciousness there to charge it up. As if you're putting energetic coins into an energetic piggy bank. Every moment you're spending, every vibration you're sending about, if it's concrete, great. If it's not, great. If it's just a ball of energy, that's something that you know you want to feel, awesome. And you're still breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. We'll spend just another moment or two here in this space. And if anything comes up, the more time we spend with our intentions, the more we might also become aware of anything that's fear, limiting beliefs, a little wonky vibration. Exhale it through your mouth. Breathe in fresh air. So doing this together in circle adds to the potency of this ritual. Doing this on this day, this potent seeding time, is also perfect. So from here, now notice how you're feeling. You can stop the practice of visualizing. Now just come back to this moment, come back to this gathering. And notice how it is that you're vibrating. Notice the shift. And now I mentioned that there was going to be a sound healing portion, and I was intending to play crystal bowls to help this resonate. What I'm going to do instead is play a particular frequency of sound and talk us through the final part of this meditation. So let me just get this sound going here for a moment. You can still just breathe with your eyes closed. Uh-oh, this is the wrong thing. This is my internet. I need my music. Okay, here we are. So this is 111 hertz. 111. 3 ones lined up in a row, or helping us in this seating time. So you've just cultivated a seed, whatever it was that you spent time charging up. Now, imagine that you're in a sound bath of sorts. And there's nothing else to imagine, nothing else to actively do for the next bit of time. This is where we trust that we are connected. Imagine the sound coming through, meeting your feet, meeting you as the seed. Let the sound start to nourish you. And whether that nourishment still needs a little bit of cleansing, maybe there's still some limiting beliefs, exhale those away. Maybe the sound is just charging you up. It's beyond our 3D consciousness. This is just being with this frequency. It's as if it's taking you as the seed and nourishing you. Into why this is very perfect with Aries and Alchemy, but you can imagine that you, the seed, are beneath the ground of the earth, and you're being nourished with whatever nutrients, whatever needs to happen for this seed to grow. A little bit more time here. So you're being nourished. Feel your worthiness. Feel your birthright of consciousness. I'm going to stop the music so that you guys can hear me. The music has done what it's doing. So now imagine this sound, this 111 frequency is just vibrating. Feel your worthiness. Feel that you're always supported. Take a moment to lean forward into your vibration, your manifestation. Just lean your body forward a little bit. Lean into the future. Then take a moment to lean back. Lean your torso back a little bit. And imagine as you're leaning back, you're held. And then come right to your straight spine. And feel your energetic field all around you, now nourished, supported. By the sound frequency that we heard, but also I think the point with the sound is that we don't need the sound, that we have the universe. That's why the sound is being a little wonky with me. We're always connected. We're always seen, heard, and listened to. So just feel that for yourself. A few more moments here. All right, and then the nature of the eclipses they are portals from now to May 5th. It's also, I mentioned, a 6-month time span. So see if you can find some peace within yourself. You can say, and so it is, with trusting non-linear time. The universe always hears us. And I mentioned some refer to eclipses as wormholes because it can bring about instantaneous manifestation, but trust the process wherever you need to go to get to this intention or to understand what it is truly serving. As you prepare to come back to this group, this gathering together today, we'll do another meditation as we close our gathering, but see if you can just find a little bit of release and peace. We can get a little bit pent up if we focus too much. So we've spent time. We've planted a seed. We've realized ourselves as seeds. And we've come to energetically feel how supported we are. So when you're ready, we're going to come back to the gathering. And it's interesting because I mentioned that I had some crystal bowls with frequencies that I wanted to play for us, but Zoom won't pick it up. And the sound healing I was trying to play for you is also showing me that we don't need the sound, which is part of the astrological message that we are the technology. So let's go ahead and come back to this gathering, and we're going to transition. We're going to go into the second part of the gathering. For those of you in the Egypt and Alchemy course, we just went over Atlantis. We're going to go over Atlantis. This is something I wrote and shared with the group, but I wanted to share it with us now, that there's a special charge about the word Atlantis. There's a lot of interesting things written. There's a lot of interested people. Some of it resonates, some of it doesn't. As with many things, take what resonates for you when it resonates for you. That's it. And trust yourself and nobody else. That's part of the message of this eclipse. You don't need anybody else. You are the thing that you need. What I understand about Atlantis is it was a very special time because it was the time that we are coming into potentially a similar vibrational frequency from the galactic center potentially is coming to Earth to help humanity awaken. When humanity awakens, the egoic self, the part of us that thinks that we're separate, that thinks that we have to keep and hoard and be afraid, dies, goes away, is replaced by the part of us that knows we're always connected, that knows that everything that we do can and should be for the collective and for the betterment of the collective and for the betterment of ourselves, taking care of ourselves first. But there was this, when the collective knows that, that's how Atlantis came about. Because with the way everybody was vibrating, or the vast majority of people all the time, was able to create this beautiful civilization. This is just a stock photo that I pulled from the internet. Who knows what it looked like? We're going to get to a book that I'm going to read a little bit from for you to start to play with what people are saying about Atlantis. But it's a higher vibrational frequency where I offer, it says 5G. I meant to say 5D, obviously. 5D is oneness. So if we really do know about oneness, we can create a lot more together, which is why we're gathering in circle today. So we're going to move on to some possible information about Atlantis and why Egypt is important. In the Egyptian alchemy course, I talk about Thoth, and Thoth is an Egyptian god. He's the god of scripture and many other things. Scribes were high priests in Egypt, and Thoth was thought to have come from Atlantis. Atlantis was thought to exist before Egypt and have been informed Egypt. And so we're going to get to spend a little bit of time here today talking about this book. This is another great time for me to say, take what resonates for you, leave the rest. But I find it interesting. I love to put on my energetic sensors and see where things resonate. So I invite you to do that as I share a little bit about this book. This guy had a fascination with Atlantis, and he has a more academic approach to what Atlantis is. And I'm using this today to help our 3D minds open up a little bit, because a lot of what's written about Atlantis is channeled work, and channeled work is super valuable, but channeled work can also be all over the place. And this is where, from his book, he talks about how archaeologists won't touch Atlantis with a 10-foot pole because it means the end of their career. He calls it something like kryptonite. But they all acknowledge that they're aware of the story. And he talks about how a lot of what is based, that Plato wrote about Atlantis. And we can go find all that information. You can find the book that Plato wrote about Atlantis. And Plato wrote about it. If it was Plato's just making things up, and I'm not saying that everything that, I'm not taking Plato and putting him in the god or goddess truth park, but I find it interesting that there is some writing about this. And Plato wrote about this at a time in his career where he wrote what's called the Republic, which is arguably the most influential work, his most influential work on Western civilization. And then he wrote about Atlantis, and then he wrote something called the Timaeus, which was his attempt to explain the universe. And it was also a very influential book. It was about the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. In between those two, he writes the story of Atlantis. So this guy that wrote this book that we're thinking of, Meet Me in Atlantis, finds it interesting that Plato wrote a book on Atlantis, and he wrote a book on Atlantis when he wrote two other books that we seem to hold as true. So one of the questions he says is, why would he write a completely nonsensical book? And we can take that or leave that. So then along come not only the channelers, before that, or in sync with that, are the people that are trying to find Atlantis as in a place. They think they found the place, and then they build the story of Atlantis around this particular place. One person that really started to popularize this, that is mentioned by Adams, is a guy named Ignatius Donnelly. And he was a US congressman. He was a little bit of a crackpot, but he was responsible for starting to look at the scientific data on the ridges in the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And he started the popular version of Atlantis in the Atlantic. Whether or not that's true doesn't necessarily matter. When Plato writes about it, Adams says that it's a maritime city off the Straits of Gibraltar. I offer, when we think about Atlantis, to help us get up and out of our ego selves. The ego self wants to find where it is and figure it out and write a book on it and be famous or whatever, wants to know. What's interesting to me about Atlantis is, as I mentioned, so many people are interested just randomly. The word is very interesting to them. Why is that? There's a charge there, which means it might be real. I would offer that we don't need to know exactly where it is until we need to know that. At that point, it will be revealed to us. So it's not necessarily for us to sit around and try to solve a scientific puzzle. The link between Atlantis and Egypt is also mentioned by Plato himself in this book. He says the story of Atlantis has ancient roots. Even for his time, he said the story of Atlantis had ancient roots. And it was an oral tradition that was passed down to Plato from his ancestors that acquired the information by word of mouth from Egyptian hieroglyphics. So Plato is saying that the story of Atlantis was understood by the Egyptians, which could sync up with the notion of the Egyptian god Thoth, the father of alchemy. Some people call him the third version of Hermes Trismegistus. Whether or not all of that is true, We're living in a time, a larger cycle of time, where the energy is lightening, and information that humanity could not understand is starting to be understandable, and potentially, we call them codes of light, are coming through to help us awaken. Information, energy codes are coming through to help us awaken. So I would offer, have this potential, as we're all feeling this need to heal Earth, to seed the planet, to be these beacons of light, that potentially, as we're seeding it, maybe we can create something as vast and as beautiful as the very best version of Atlantis that you imagine. That's why I think Atlantis is interesting. I think it's a little bit more interesting to keep it as a motivating and inspirational factor energetically, to help us get up and over some of the like, we don't even know what we can create because we've been so stuck in darkness, right? So Atlantis is interesting because it might have existed, and it could help us vibrate towards what it is that our soul is really here to create. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Atlantis for today. I'm going to stop the share for a second and see if anybody has any questions or comments about this.
I have a question. So I resonate with what you're saying. And
wait, I can't hear you.
Oh,
wait. You can wait, hold on. Pause. Mike, this is also how you know that you're in like eclipses. I was going to say I had to reboot my computer like 5 times to get this gathering going, and I almost wanted to tell you guys the technology is going to fail. Eve, you were talking and I couldn't hear you, but I don't know if everybody else could hear you. So could you start over again now that I think I've got the volume up for me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I resonate with everything that you're saying. I've also been following along with your podcast and getting into this vibration over the past year since the spring eclipses last year. And when I was listening to the last few podcasts, a question that came up for me is, I'm familiar with the Yuga cycle and the idea that we're in like Dwapara Yuga, the beginning of Dwapara Yuga, and it's like the Atlantis vibration that you're talking about. In my mind, it's like, oh no, that's all the way up in Satya Yuga. And does that, so my question is like, are we there yet?
We don't want to be there yet. As Abraham Hicks says, if you're there, then you're going to die. No, so not there. We're not ever, we don't have to be there yet, but that's kind of what's coming through, is that what if this is possible sooner versus later? And if we think about where the ascended masters go, okay, this is great. Let's pause for a second and think about the idea of ascended masters. Jesus, Gandhi, Buddha, all the other, Saint Germain, whatever these enlightened beings that we may know about, right? So they go through this process and they manage to somehow, some of them will leave their body and come back. They're in their light body. They leave the physical plane, but they stick around to help humanity. There's different ways for us to think about how we can communicate in the astral. They're in higher dimensions. They choose to help humanity, right? This is also what's relating Atlantis to Egypt. There's been many people who say when they go to Egypt, they can see a higher dimension, and the Egyptians haven't actually left. They can see people in there. So it's possible that the Yuga cycles, we're kind of coming up, right, is what you're saying. So you're like, well, I thought Atlantis was way up here, right? If you're looking at that image of the Yuga cycles, well, what if way up here is 5D, 6D, something that we don't even understand yet? Because what the eclipses show us is that idea of a portal, that idea of a wormhole, that idea of beyond linear time, that we're not as stuck as we feel we are, right? So what keeps coming through for me is that we don't even have, we're like little kids. We haven't even learned to walk with our energetic selves, right? And if you think about what we need to learn as humans to function in the world, walking, talking, eating, riding a bike, driving a car, whatever, all those skills. We're just this infant coming online in this sense of time, the grand scheme of time. So Atlantis could be right there. If that answers your question. I'm not saying necessarily that I know for sure that the case that that's true. That's not my job. I think is to offer light and this remembering that we are so powerful and that anything is possible, and it becomes possible the moment we really believe it, right? So that's kind of why the meditations keep having a similar theme with lunar cycles, is how quickly can we pull the stuff out of our field and then reset ourselves and get ourselves to where we do believe that anything is possible. So thank you for your question. I hope, does that answer?
Yes, and you are doing that, so thank you.
Woo! May the technology continue for our gathering. I hope it does. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I wanted to just kind of expand on that a little bit. I think just with all of the Egyptian alchemy and everything, I've been spending a lot of time really looking at like how alchemy, how I can incorporate it into my daily, into my life. And I have this kind of visual on, this whole embodiment thing of how, I love Abraham Hicks, Esther, but I get so much resonance from so much that's said. One thing that has really resonated for me is this idea of not waiting until we're not here on this planet, but actually learning to embody it all here in this physical body, right here, right now. And so that's something that I spend a lot of time kind of just, am I doing that in this world, moment to moment, day to day? As I was I spent some time kind of diving deeper into like the Hermetic principles, and actually a lot of time really diving into the whole Atlantis history, lore, all that's out there. It's so interesting just to see and take in the visuals and all of that. But one of the things I've been spending time with right now has just been this idea of, and it feels like alchemy to me, in the looking, a daily practice is to like release what no longer serves, for myself, for the greater good. And that's just a daily practice. So it's interesting to see where I feel like I am now versus perhaps some point in the past, who knows when, yesterday, 5 minutes ago, because it's such a regular part of what I do. But what I've been working with this week has been this idea of those things that actually almost bring up the disgust impulse, the things that I push against, that I don't feel like they're that many, but when something presents itself and I feel myself really pushing against it, sitting with that and actually realizing, if we're looking at things from the totality, like the fullness of it, what it really is, we're all of it. And that is all of it. And so that too is divine. And it's just the point of perception and perspective that we're sitting at that is causing us to have that. And so I've been working to try to alchemize those little points and pieces. And so as I was sitting here kind of taking notes, there was some things that I know that I've been carrying that are almost more on like a physical scale, that I just really was opening up for guidance on. And I know I already know because I've already done the work, but on actually sending those off into the world so that they can have, their next best, their best life. But also I love the fact that you were talking about this being a 6-month process, because I actually made a note to myself that I'm going to put little reminders that pop up to check in, where I can actually celebrate what I've done in little chunks of time. Because I feel like so often we're always focusing forward, or maybe what's not even there, and we forget to pause and actually celebrate all that we have done. And we do so much in these little spans of time. And that's why I really love the lunar alchemy, just paying attention to those cycles and being able to capture and then reflect on all of the growth that's actually taking place.
Yeah, I love it. I love, and in the Egyptian alchemy course, we touch on cycles of time and time in packets and times not being linear, and how time, we're unsticking ourselves from certain things, and the ability to be wherever we need to be, to shift instantaneously and to have everything always be right. And I love that. And I think that is part of where we're at. And maybe it could be what we're healing, but it's also just what we're understanding, so that we can open up to more information. And Atlantis is so, I love that you mentioned all the different stories out there, because there's so much. I thought about what to say about it, but I loved when I read about the cetaceans and how the dolphins and the whales are, whether or not they created it, they're definitely caretaking it, and that resonates for me, because I know on a scientific basis, I believe that dolphins are super duper intelligent. I just, know, and so are whales. And so I think that if we think about them as part of that civilization, or the caretakers of that portal, or whatever that is really neat. And it's inspirational to spend time in those places and see what resonates. So thank you for sharing. That's super perfect. Thank you.
I wanted to say really quickly, because what you just said reminded me of one of the things that I love that you so often do, is actually looking at these stories and either from a different perspective, or imagining what if the story had been written from the person itself, as opposed to the society or the place and time, where every person who's looking at any one incident, think of a accident or something that happens, the eyewitnesses, everyone has a different story. And so we're getting just a sliver with anything that we get. And so just your ability to actually go into these stories of all the goddesses and actually like look at them from a new perspective and rewrite it. I know for myself that this has been really powerful for me over the last year or two, to actually catch myself when I hear myself saying something, an old story, or just even the words that I use. Words are spells. Be careful how you use them. But I've actually been pausing when something, why am I saying that? Like, why do I say that? Be it programming, be it, just our lives, where we are at this state as a human. But I've been spending time to actually like rewrite it for myself every time I catch myself in that moment. And it's been really powerful to just like, it almost just transmutes and releases what is happening there. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing. And you're welcome for my sharing. I think it's interesting. It feels a little selfish. My response that I want to say is, well, I did that for myself too, because I needed to have a better relationship with that story, right? But I love that, because that is simultaneously, this act of service. Everything we do is for the collective, and also we are the vessel. Our responsibility is, this is home, right? And I love that you're kind of looking at your consciousness, and that's what this eclipse is interesting. We'll touch on a little bit of the Aries-ness. This is it's subtle energy, but it's intense times right now. And so some of the realizations are It's for me, it feels so automatic and sweet and simple, but also super challenging in a way that I didn't see. I didn't see my own challenges. And so there's this mirroring that's happening for us around this time. So thank you. Yay. Oh my gosh, this is great. Okay, anybody else have anything they want to share before we move on to alchemy and stuff? All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to just kind of shift gears and see if we can. So yeah, so this book on Atlantis, I'm not necessarily saying go buy it or read it, or I agree with everything he says. I found it interesting. So one of those nuggets, as Amy was saying, you know, this is a guy that, and we don't need science to back this up to believe it's true by any stretch. But it's interesting to me that he says Plato talked about it. And we don't need Plato to make ourselves know what is true and what is not. And to kind of pivot off of what Amy said, is Plato's one of those people that was writing stories about goddesses. And Plato was one of those people at one of those times. I find it interesting that Plato's writing about it. That's what I love. That's enough. I mean, not that I need that type of evidence, but I think it's super duper cool that this person that modern society holds on a pedestal is also talking about this. For me, that helps me lean in a little bit more and believe, because some of the stuff that we're clearing in ourselves, like we started with the meditation, is our own fear and our own doubt, and the stuff that has been kind of inserted into our field by a well-meaning parent or just society at large. So this book was interesting in that regard, and that's why I wanted to start with that as a little kind of swinging the door open for the energy that's flowing through today. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk about the astrology a little bit. We're going to talk about the herbal and alchemical alignments. So this is a little chart. I like to do charts mostly for me to help myself organize how I understand information and how to present information. So at the top, we have the astrological qualities or modes or modalities. So, you know, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Those are all the 12 signs in astrology are all assigned to one of those modes, one of those energetic vibrations. Aries is a cardinal sign. None of those cardinal, fixed, and mutable are any worse or any better. Just like everything, it all plays this role, and it's almost very much like a maiden mother crone role. It's part of this grander cycles, and time, for me, really resonates that it is in cycles. So this eclipse has a lot of cardinal energy in it, and we'll get to the chart in a second. But you know, in the podcast, I talk about how we've got Eris and Chiron and the sun and the moon, and I think it's Jupiter. I forgot. I've looked at that chart all day today, and now I can't remember. But anyway, we've got a lot of Aries energy. And where the sun and the moon are, those are the eclipsing bodies. So Aries is kind of leading the energetic stamp on what's happening here. There's a whole lot of different classifications that I touch on in the course, or I will touch on in the course, about how things can come in 3s and 5s and 7s. So it's interesting to me. I just wanted to throw in there, the doshas are also synced up with a particular astrological sign. There's a whole body of work called medical astrology, which is linked to herbal astrology, which links every energetic signature to everything else. I don't think we have time to talk about that today. I wanted to talk about what's written at the bottom, which is the alchemical trinity: sulfur, salt, and mercury. Those were the alchemists thought of. They're just words. We don't take them literally. We're not talking about table salt. We're not talking about stinky sulfur. But those things represented what I find interesting below, and that's what I'm going to get. So cardinal energy. Oh, so sulfur would be the non-form. Sulfur would be something that can shape or shift into anything. Salt would be the thing that creates the shape. The active, that's the male part, the sulfur's the female part. Mercury would be the self or the ego. All three are necessary. Aries energy is related to sulfur, which we don't need to understand what that means now, but we can go down to connect Aries with connect Aries with the bottom, the bottom of that column, non-form, can shape and can change into anything, needs something to shape and change it to accomplish anything. So it's interesting because in the Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn cycle, the cardinal cycle, that is itself an energetic cycle. Aries is the charge. Aries is interestingly seemingly male, but it's that where it sits is with that meditation we did where we leaned back and then we imagined that we were the big seed, as if we're surrounded by Earth, we're surrounded by the universe, we're surrounded by the listening ears of everything being energy. So Aries is associated with that, which I think I said this in the podcast. We came off a lot of new moons at the 0 degrees. And now we have this new moon at the anaretic degree. So we just had it at 0 degrees. It was the last of a sequence of new moons that was all signaling very obviously to the 3D world, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, gonna new beginning, new beginning, new beginning. So now all of a sudden we're at the shadow side of Aries. Shadow side of Aries in an eclipse is perfect. But Aries is associated with this thing that's waiting to be formed. So we can think of our wish, ourselves, or whatever it is that we're seeking to manifest, all of that being the same thing, as being infused with this energy that knows anything is possible. So if we're surrounded by this energy that is sulfur, Aries being sulfur, sulfur being can be made into anything, how does that help us lift up and out of more of the limiting thoughts, more of the ways that we don't yet understand? That's the nature of this eclipse. That's the nature of this astrology. Before I get to the chart, well, let's get to the chart next. I'm going to switch my share and just really quickly go over some of the things of the chart, and then we'll get to some gemstones and some herbs and stuff like that. So we're just really quickly going to look at this chart because I didn't want to put it all in the podcast. So this is the chart for when this eclipse happens. This is the chart for where I live. So what's important are how all the planets and some of the asteroids are aspecting each other, and the houses and the signs are always the same, but where on the clock face it sits is going to change depending on where you're at in the world. But we're going to work with the overarching energies here. So when we look, I talk about a lot of planets in Aries. There's Aries, there's the sun, the moon, Eris, Jupiter, and Chiron. Okay, it wasn't Saturn, it was Jupiter. That's fine. So all that's Aries energy. And I mentioned in the podcast, the sun and the moon, you can see here, here's Pluto out here at 0 degrees Aquarius, which is what's the big deal. Pluto's coming out of Capricorn, coming into Aquarius just for a little bit this year. It's really cool that Pluto's in Aquarius during this eclipse, during this portal, during this wormhole. Pluto's giving some squaring action to this eclipse. So squaring is challenging, but squares are never, to me personally, when I think about what all these aspects in astrology mean, I think about it as never like, oh man, I got a bad birth chart. Squaring just means realizations for change. It feels a little bit, squaring means, kind of this, there's some friction there. We're going to have to sense something. But when we have our energetic sensors up, we feel that. And the more energetic sensitive we are, the more quickly we respond. That's what Pluto's doing. So Pluto is supporting us in that sort of time warp where when Eve was asking about the Yuga cycles, and could it be possible that I thought Atlantis was way up here. Well, maybe it is and maybe it's not, but this is the type of thing. These are the energetics that are helping us awaken. So the other thing I want to touch on next is up at the top of the chart. Gosh, that's going to be like 2 o'clock on a clock face. We've got Mars in Cancer. Mars rules Aries. Mars is out of bounds. So this is interesting because Mars and Aries are both like charge, right? And I talked a little bit about the anaretic degree, the shadow side of Aries, but that shadow side meaning that we're here for the collective, and how can we handle our individuality so that we can serve ourselves and serve the collective for optimal. Mars being out of bounds adds an exclamation point to all that Aries energy anyway. And Mars is out of bounds in the intuitive, energetically sensitive, very mama protection sign of Cancer. So that just means intensity in one sense. Intensity to what? Well, let's look. Mars is I think that's a trine. I forget. It's a trine or it's a sextile. Blue in this on the charts is what people call positive. Red is people call negative. That doesn't really, that's not the dualistic association, but the blue is going to be more flowing energy. The red is going to be more friction so that we can get through. So Mars out of bounds is in sync with Saturn, which is interesting if we think about the structures that are shaking. That's part of that's why we're doing this continual cleansing of ourselves, because we live in this world and we're not seeking to leave our bodies permanently in the higher, we're seeking to access higher intelligence and dimensions and bring it down here, right? So that's what Saturn's all about, that groundingness, that putting it back into the 3D world, that for the sake of being able to create it, helping the little kids say, focus on one thing so that you can create it. That's kind of what that energy is. And not we have to focus on one thing, but we also have Mercury here. This is a sextile to, that is Uranus, and that is Mercury in the sign of Taurus. So this is what's cool. This is where I just like to call Uranus as, it's reminding us that we are the high technology we seek. There's a lot of other ways to talk about it, but it's an outer planet. Outer planets like Pluto and Uranus and Neptune generally trump the other smaller planets because it's longer cycles, subtle energy. But Uranus, reminding us that we are the technology we seek, we are the communication mechanism, is right snuggled up next to, conjunct, the planet that we know collectively as communication, Mercury, the messenger. So this is showing us that these worlds aren't so separate. And it's in the sign of Taurus, which is, again, signaling, kind of like what Saturn was signaling, grounding it down, putting this into Earth. Pinging off of what one of you guys were saying, I think it was Amy, that like, I'm interested in doing this in this body. That's what I feel called to do right now. So this is a very special, fortuitous, albeit potentially challenging eclipse. And I think it's going to be a lot less challenging for those of us who are willing to entertain a challenge. Because the only reason why anything ever makes us feels like a slap on the face or makes us fall down is because we've ignored the signal, right? So when you're interested in those red lines being, well, I don't know what I don't know. Let me see I'm open, universe. What don't I know about how I'm running my vibe? What don't I know about the universe? When we can step back and step out of that space where we think we have it down, then those red lines become opportunities so that maybe this eclipse is not traumatic at all. Maybe it's just moments of realization because we can sense it. That's back to that more energetically sensitive. The more energetically sensitive we can be, the better off we are. So that's what I wanted to share about this chart. I'm going to stop this share and really quickly just see if anybody has any questions before I get back to the herbs and the alchemy. And if you don't have anything, that's fine. But if you do have any questions or anything to comment. All right, let's just go ahead and get back to the main presentation. Where am I? I'm here. Okay. So we're going to move along here. We're going to move along to this is my offering. If it doesn't resonate, don't worry about it. There's a lot of people that say a lot of things about which planets and rule over which gemstones and which herbs. Sun and Aries for many people I find citrine to be an interesting gemstone to work with when the sun is in Aries. It resonates with me because I know citrine as a crystal that obviously helps the solar plexus, our power center, our creation center, our drive, our ambition. And sun in Aries, sun being our egoic self, our 3D self, our physical selves. Aries being that action-oriented drive planet. So citrine would really fits well for me in the sense that it is resonant. So that doesn't mean that it doesn't work with any other astrological aspects, but I can see how citrine would be useful during this eclipse. That's an offering. Nettle is interesting because nettle is a liver and kidney tonic. If you've ever worked with nettle, nettle has those tiny little spikes on it. We grow it up here for our Lunar Herbal Alchemy Guild for the tea thing that we do up here that we're going to be doing at farmers markets. But nettle, if you grab nettle, if you touch it, it stings you. It hurts. It's not a forever hurt, but it wants you to know that it's there. That's also interesting, Sun and Aries energy, because it's very much an I am plant. It's very much a here's who I am plant. It's also not super harmful. It's also a liver and kidney tonic. I think of nettle as super nourishing, like spinach. The way it tastes is just like good for your blood, good for your body, full of vitamins, full of vitality. Also helping us get out anything that's stuck in our physicality. So that's the potential for this eclipse as well, because that's what the process can be like if we are just willing to even let the breath, even if we don't know what we're releasing, if we entertain during the next few days that every single exhale is the opportunity to just let go, like that first meditation we did. And so the eclipse adds a little bit more meaning to Sun and Aries because, well, we know it's when the sun and the moon are in alignment. And from our space on Earth, when an eclipse happens, the light from the sun is blocked, either in part or in full. I mentioned this is a hybrid eclipse. This happens 3% of the time. It goes from the ring of fire annular to the total eclipse to the partial eclipse. So we've got all the energies kind of signaling the deep fear of the blockage of full blackout, but also the magicalness of remembering what the transmissions are that come from the sun. Beyond all that, it's a catalyst. It's an energetic catalyst. It's a reboot, is, the way that our technological minds thinking about our computers and how that works. Sometimes you just need to turn it on and turn it off again. And there it is, So that is significant. That's one of the ways we can understand or look at how the new beginnings energy, how the seeding energy is so important. So I'm going to, just going to kind of close this section by saying this is a think big time, which is why I think it's really cool that we're talking about Atlantis, and it doesn't mean that we even understand what the big picture is, but being willing to have it be that what we dreamed of is only the beginning of the thing that is possible. That's what I think is so inspiring. All right, so we're going to get to a ritual and a journey. I think we're ready for that. Let me see if I have any other notes. So for this ritual, I got a candle. Let me get myself together here. Yellow color. This is inspired by, so for candle magic, candle colors are significant. That's what we're doing with the yellow candle. We're going to light this, and this will help bring in the light and help seed the light during this meditation. But we're going to kind of continue. Let me get my hands free and get this candle on this plate real quick. And then I'm just going to set it to the side and you guys can know that it's burning. You might consider, if you want to burn a candle later on today, the eclipse is happening 9:30 Pacific time. Timeliness is of the essence. Also, it isn't. Do it when you want to do it. If you want to do it, you might consider, if you want to do any particular personal ritual, a candle and a citrine, a tiger's eye, an agate. Those are all really great stones for what's happening, or just whatever crystal you feel drawn to. So we're going to move into another meditation. I invite you to, for this one, you consider you can lie, but we're going to close our eyes. We're going to close our eyes and we're going to return to our breath. Greet the breath with this new potential for ongoing every moment of every day, fresh energy, releasing old energy, that we can be reborn every day. So we're going to start back with the idea of the new moon, the dark moon. Look up in the sky at night, looks like nothing's up there. She's up there. She's always present. She's just not illuminated by the light of the sun. This is our internal world. So when we think about Luna's communication message for us, ability to understand us and help us, she's a quiet moon. She's an inward looking moon. This moon is perfect first for us to cast aside, to set aside our fears, to set aside the things that are irking us. To just like when we started this, we don't have to go back to that particular thing that irked us, that I asked us to remember, but to realize that all we have to do is switch gears. All we have to do is flip the switch. All we have to do is shift our attention. That's always the case. Luna is reminding us that at the new moon time. Anything's possible. So we're going back within the first phase, to the first moment of this cycle. And with the drive of Aries, for me, part of the message is resolve, peace with the process, and commitment or resolve or confidence to create, to evolve. And with this idea of evolving, we are always, every moment, being reborn. That's what the breath symbolizes. New breath in, old breath out. Coming online, coming alive, coming offline, releasing. So every moment we can die and be reborn, we can shift. That's how quickly we can shift. So imagine, or maybe you go outside tonight and you connect, but imagine you're just outside at night underneath the dark moon, and you can just send an energetic beam up to her from your heart, from your third eye, from whatever part of your body, from your plexus, from all of them. Send a beam of energy up. And allow that beam of energy from whatever energetic center to go up to her, to have a color. That can be specific to you. It could be golden yellow. It could be chakra specific, whatever color. Maybe it has multiple colors. Just notice that. And part of the message around this eclipse that is intimated by the astrology, but just general, is that we're living in times of massive change. And getting comfortable in that process of change, being in the change, being the change, conquering the change, making peace with the change, being in flow with the change is what we're seeking. Being a part of the change. Notice what about all that resonates. That's what's happening for us now. And if we think about it that way, if we look at it with those physical and energetic eyes, feel that peace, feel that resolve, feel the security and commitment and confidence in knowing that I am in flow. I'm always at the right place at the right time. And start to feel grateful for this life, for this experience of being alive during a time of massive change, and for being willing to awaken, to be awake, to contribute, to be part of the change during this time of change. Notice what that means for you. We're each souls with a unique journey in this physical vessel. We're also part of a collective journey, but that idea of being a part of a change is going to look differently for every being. It's going to be what we're seeding right now. What is that manifestation? Who are we? How do we vibrate every moment of every day? So start to cultivate maybe a feeling of gratitude for yourself, for your soul coming online, coming into this body with all the experiences being to bring you to right here, right now, so that you are precisely placed on the planet with everything you've experienced, everything that you have already seeded, everything you are going to see. Feel the gratitude for you. And feel the gratitude for everything that's changing, for everything that's unfolding. And we know those quotes, the only constant is change. We've heard that. We're understanding at a deeper level what that means and how that allows us to be in flow and how that allows us to be of service and how that allows us to be at the right place at the right time. And what a profound gift that can be just by being willing to be in that space and grateful to yourself, grateful to the universe for supporting you. Like the opening meditation that we did, where we leaned back and we felt just like Mama Earth is always surrounding us, the universe is always surrounding us. And that if we stay with this sense of deep gratitude and blessing for ourselves and for everything always being perfect, then we can realize that the future is blessed, that we are blessed for all eternity, that we are not only understanding that we're held today, that we are, the more we really can live, that we're always heard. The universe always sees us and responds. Not because that we're interested in helping the planet evolve, not because we're interested in being light workers. This is just something that happens all the time. But the blessing, the feeling of the blessing can start to just create a wonderful feeling of gratitude. So we're going to spend a few moments just seeing if you can feel kind of a welling. And wherever you connected to Luna, whether it was from your plexus or your heart or your third eye, or maybe all of them, when you're looking up at her tonight in the dark sky, connecting to the thing you cannot see, but that you know is there. Feel that space in your body. Connect with her again. And now to sort of loop this back to notions of Atlantis, notions of civilizations that existed during times of high vibrational energy. We're going to take a little bit of an astral journey. So I'm going to first invite you to, just as we started this gathering, send a root, send a cord down, connect to Mother Earth. Send your roots down beneath the soil so that you can feel secure, you can feel grounded. Bring your energy up through your body and allow yourself to stay connected to Luna in the sky. However you connected to her, let her inform this journey. We're going to move our awareness. We're going to simultaneously know that we are in our bodies, that we are always safe. I'm going to invite you to imagine you're going to bring your awareness up to your third eye. And as you connect with your third eye, it's as if that pineal gland is turning into this, and it's crystal, starting to sparkle with rainbow light. Imagine that inside the center of your head is this beautiful crystal. It's coming online, as if the light is shining from the sun, as we would see it in our 3D world. A light shining through a crystal creates a prismatic effect, right? So imagine that's your pineal gland. Lighting up for this journey. And then we're going to bring our awareness out through our third eye. So you're going to kind of move yourself up and out through your third eye so that you can have this sort of astral version of you. It can be above you, it can be right in front of you. So you can be witnessing yourself. Eyes closed, in your mind's eye. You're hovering in front of or above yourself. So there you are, whatever clothes you're wearing today, wherever you're seated, whatever's around you, you're still you in your physical body, but now you're up and out of your body. Notice how it feels. As you're up and out of your body, you can still see, you can see through your body. You can see into the center of your head. You can see that pineal gland with this rainbow prism. And this rainbow prism is starting to project out in front of you. In your astral self, there's this beautiful orb of rainbow light. It's creating a portal of sorts. And you can choose for this journey to be in your body. You can create wings. We're going to soar. We're going to fly. You can become a hawk. You can find a bird if you like, or you can just be you. But since we're beyond gravity, having wings can help us with this journey. So you can sort of lift up now beyond that rainbow orb with your wings and begin to fly. Or maybe you're just floating and you already know how to fly without wings. So now you're up and above yourself. Whatever town you're in, wherever you're at, you can witness this 3D physical world. And we're going to go to Egypt to start the journey. So just take yourself there. Whatever you know about that place, take yourself to the pyramid, put yourself in front of the Sphinx, in front of the paws of the Sphinx. So you fly, you land right there. That Sphinx is a portal. And you can, in your astral self, walk up and touch the chest, the heart of that guardian of a portal. And as you put your hand on the Sphinx's chest, you move inside the Sphinx itself. Notice what you see. There are many dimensions within that physical monument. But the Sphinx is going to guide us on a journey to have a better understanding of the crystal grids that are coming online right now. Atlantis was a civilization that was known to work with crystals, quartz crystals, many people say. That doesn't need to be necessarily the case, but we're going to start to take a journey. So now you're in the Sphinx, another portal opens. You sprout your wings, you head into that portal. Now you're going down beneath the earth. And as you're flying or moving, you might be flying through underground tunnels. You might just be moving through space. You're moving from one grid space at the Sphinx. You're being drawn along an energetic ley line. Notice where you're moving to. This can be unique for all of us at this juncture, because all of us are part of this grid work coming online, and we're not all necessarily moving on the same freeway, so to speak. Our souls all have unique journeys that we're here to see light. So just let yourself, as if you're this astral version of you, if you're a hawk, if you've got your own wings, you're soaring along a ley line to get to an underground crystal grid of sorts. The grid is already set up. It's already online. We know that. Now we're having this journey to see what we can't see with our physical eyes. And the ley lines are what pull us from activation spot or portal to portal. So I'm going to invite you to arrive at the next space underground. Notice if it's a cavern of crystals. Notice if it's just another portal. Notice if there is quartz crystal there. Notice if there's some other kind of crystal there. Take a look around and take it in. And then when you're ready, every single node on a vast network of a crystal grid has multiple ley lines extending out of it. So you're drawn to the ley line that's going to take you to the next spot, to the next point of light, the next portal that will also have some association, whether it's a cavern or types of crystal. Notice what you see, notice where you're at. And you might have an association with the above ground space, but it might not be. This is all happening below the level of the soil. So we're just going to spend a few moments here. And the journey goes very much like that. You are now sensing that there are these nodes of light, these activation points, these portals, but these crystalline spaces that are all connected. They're already active. You're following them with these ley lines, following them with how they communicate to each other. This is very much, in my mind, how the monarchs make their migration. They know the energetic lines of the earth. So do the whales. Have this experience for yourself and just notice what you see. A few more moments here. And this can be something you can do again whenever you want. And as you get this understanding of everything coming online, already online, so to speak, already the energy's already flowing and happening. It's part of the predictions of the Aztec and the Mayan calendar and all these things that have happened that nothing necessarily really happened in the 3D world. Well, it's happening on places that humanity can't quite grasp yet. Underneath soil is one of them. So just a few more moments here. And maybe after you've journeyed underground from place to place, you can kind of even pull yourself up and out of all of that and go up above the earth. Go visit Luna herself and see those grids from a larger perspective. See the energy that's flowing. See the energetic communication between the crystals. And then when you're ready, the Sphinx is going to call you back. Journey here for as long as you'd like, as long as you need. You're going to arrive back inside the Sphinx, put your hand, and then find yourself outside the Sphinx. Send a pulse of gratitude to her for supporting and guiding this journey. And then when you're ready, sprout your wings one last time and fly back to you. You're hovering over yourself. When you're ready, coming back into your body the way you left, right through your third eye, right into your pineal gland. Feel yourself rooted down into earth. Spend a few moments, maybe with your eyes closed still, just breathing, feeling your body breathe. Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth. Maybe you can move yourself around a little bit. And then we're just going to come right back to our gathering, the here and the now. So I find that the journey came through because of the energetics of this eclipse. And it's interesting that, as I mentioned, the civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis especially were known for using crystals, were known for their wisdom and understanding of what all that meant. So that journey was an offering. I want to give us a little bit of time to come back to the gathering. Take as much time as you need. But this would be the time where if anybody else had anything they want to share about that gathering or about what resonated for them, that's pretty much the end of my quote unquote formal presentation. But that doesn't mean that there's not something that somebody else has that they would like to share. Now would be that time.
Thank you so much. First. And then second, can you talk a little bit more about the ley lines and what you mean by that?
Yeah. I teach a course on energetic clearing, and we learn pendulum work for dowsing, and we learn dowsers use those rods to find underground water, right? I love that dowsing is something that cuts across cultural and cuts across all the lines. These guys, these Western cowboys use these rods to find stuff underground, right? I've met a couple of them. They're fascinating people. What else is underground? So many things are underground, but a dowsing rod or a pendulum or any kind of device like that can help us find whatever's low. Some of the pendulums have chambers. You can put stuff in there. So you can find water, you can find crystals. The ley lines are something that Aboriginal tribes call them song lines. So remember when there was that big activation at Uluru? There was a big deal a couple of years ago. I did a podcast on it. I actually honestly forget when it was, but there are these energetic connection points. So a ley line would be a way that energy travels consistently. It's almost like an underground pipeline. What's interesting to note, and this is not what this presentation is about at all, but some of the power centers are where wars are fought, where cathedrals are erected. You know, in Mexico City, in the Zocalo, there's a pyramid that sits on a portal of sorts, and the Catholic Church built a massive church right on top of it, because in my understanding, they wanted to try to control that energetic. It's almost like a subway station, if you think about it, right? So energy's coming in and there's this space, and then energy's going out, and it's connected. That's why I mentioned the word nodes, because I think about it like a spoke on a wheel, right? And the energy flows, and people can affect the energetic flows of the currents. That's one of the reasons why there's a big movement against fracking, for example. Not only does it affect animals on our planet, it affects the energetic communications that are on in the 3D world. This is what's so great about this. This is where we take these astral journeys, but in my understanding, and this is my offering, that those things are, if they're not already scientifically documentable, they can be things that we can find and sense and feel. Another thing that dowsers will do, if you're, say, on a ley line or an underground space that you're not oriented in the right way, maybe, you know, just by shifting where you sleep at night or shifting where your front door is, you can interact the way the energy interacts with you. So there's a whole host of things, which is why there's a course on it. But there's the idea for us here is that these grids are becoming active, and I wanted to share personally, I find a lot of peace with that. I find a lot of peace knowing that I'm just a part of I'm a part of this dance. So, you know, to help us get up and out of, well, did I do enough work? Do I need to get the retreat center running and then I'll help save the planet? No, I get to just be me. The grids are running. Do you know what I mean? They're already affecting the planet. I can contribute to them, but there are ways that things can flow. And if we think about harnessing flows of energy, and the 3D world, some people will say that's why some of the wars are fought in the world, to try to have control over something that, quite honestly, in the higher dimensions, that's not the way it works. But that is an attempt, but that's also why we're always safe, which is why we went to the Sphinx first, because I think it's a space that many of us, if we're here, already feel like home, right? So thank you for your question. Did I answer it, or do you have anything else?
Just one more question. So when this is like the conditioning of or visualize it as a grid, but is that how it is? Like, it doesn't need to be like equally spaced or something like that. These are just centers, and it's beyond even the 3D. So it's like, my mind wants.
So have you ever seen one of those maps that they talk about the chakras of the earth? And if you Google chakras of the earth, you'll find maps with all sorts of different places. But, you know, there's some commonalities: the pyramids, Stonehenge, Hawaii, Glastonbury, like these places that obviously also feel within us like, oh, that's real, you know? So those could be, but those aren't necessarily all equally spaced. Do you know what I'm saying? They're not. So I hope I answer your question. My internet is a little bit bad, so I think I caught most of the question. But I think what you're asking is kind of beyond linear time. Like, how does it look? Do you know what I mean? Like, how would I? So that's why I was even saying, as part of it, you may realize that you're in the place that you recognize above the soil, but maybe you don't, you know, and trusting that. In another one, that's Mount Sinai. Like, that's a place where I mentioned, like, the Ark of the Covenant is believed to be somewhere in that area. There's a lot of major religions that are located in that area. So that's possibly a power center of the earth herself. For me personally, good news is Earth is a conscious creature, and she's the mom. So, you know, we little humans are trying to clean our act up, but she's gonna do what she's gonna do at the end of the day too, right? So I find a lot of peace with that too. Once again, did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think it's just the astral journey. It's like, I got to the Sphinx, but then I get caught up in, like, my mind is trying to create the visualization rather than just receiving the visualization. So, like, just that was really helpful to remove some of those blocks that I have around, like, I want to think of it as like, you know, a power system the way that we have it built, but that's not what it is.
Well, so it's interesting that, you know, in technology, in computers, in microchips, that's quartz technology. That is crystal technology. It's just being used for something else, right? So, but that's the only way we know about it, because we only know what we've experienced. Astral journeying, I wanted to be, you know, we spend a lot of time in the Egyptian alchemy course, not working, but in that realm, but also just like all the different clairs, all the different clairvoyance, clairsentience, all this stuff, different people will have different things. Some people are energetic feelers. Some people are very visual. Some people will, you know, hear a voice. So it also it's not a contest to have the best journey. And you didn't do anything wrong if you were like, whoa, what am I doing? It's almost like learning to ride a bike, you know, when we first move into that space. And there's a lot of fear about going into the astral, because the astral is, in my understanding, something very much akin to 4D. 4D is light and dark. There's a lot of the media, for example, can use the astral to manipulate humanity with a lot of fear. And so there is a lot of fear, but there's also a lot of light in astral, which is why we rooted down before we left. And the name of the game is we're always sovereign. And so it's a place where it's also linked to our pineal gland, linked to our third eye, linked to our ability to trust what we see. And that's like riding the bike. Ultimately, we're learning to trust ourselves. We're learning to trust our read of energy. We're learning to trust our imagination, which was shamed into being this thing that little kids do that's nowhere nonsense land. That's what we're trying. That's what the bike riding skill, the atrophied muscle, I call it, right? We're getting back into that space. So there's no contest either, but I think that's what you're saying, is it was kind of a little bit like, whoa, what am I doing? That's just conditioning. That's just part of the thing that maybe is, you know, part of the release for this eclipse too, right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have anything else they want to share? Okay, well, our candle is still burning, and I'm going to light another candle around the eclipse tonight for the same purpose. I will put this up on YouTube as soon as I can. I find that when it's a longer gathering with multiple people, it just takes the internet longer to download it and me to edit it and upload it. So I'll get it up there as soon as possible. But if you are here, you know, if there's any part about this that you want to revisit, this is again a time of intention setting. It's a time of dreaming big, but bigger in that Atlantean Egyptian sense. That's like beyond the way we've been taught how to create, and allowing these new understandings and realizations. And hey, if I can astral journey, I can go anywhere at any time. That's how I can get some information if I need it too, or inspiration. So plant some seeds, light a candle if you'd like. And thank you for being here in circle together. I feel very blessed to have everybody join me live. And I will be offering a second version of the Egyptian alchemy course. It's a really wonderful community. It's going to be an ongoing thing in terms of a group of people gathering together. I will also continue to offer free stuff if you don't want to do the course. That's fine. Like this. So if anybody doesn't have anything else, I'm going to say deep bow and tons of love to you guys. Thank you. All right, guys. Happy eclipse. I look forward to seeing you on May 5th. We're going to do a similar but different version with the next eclipse. So yay, tons of love. See you soon.